Hi and welcome to the channel. I wanted to create a video for those who have some experience with squad or to become a better player or a better squad leader. Uh, from my experience, I've seen it's a lot of variation in skill and experience, and I kind of want to discuss that. So let's get right into it. Generally in squad, you get a huge range of people doing different tasks, and not everyone is on the same page. Uh, some people do more than others, and it's a fact on most teams. But nonetheless, the best team that works well is when everyone is on the same page. And so I want to discuss how we begin a game to relatively the end and start from there. So the priority in the early game would be starting 4 types of squads. There would be infantry, that would be full, all 9, and their expectation is that they're going to be on the front line. Either they'll be riding with the armor, or they'll have their own logi to set something up. Or maybe they can set up a backup fob, but the expectation is that they're all going to go to the front line. There can be support squads, set up mortars, tows, and super fobs or something in the background. And they can do that, but I generally prefer to have less than a full squad doing that. Too many people off the front line is essentially removing people from our team. So try to keep less people in those squads. Maybe in armor squads, there's about 2 to 3 people, IFVs manning APCs, and there are also the heli squads. They have their own squads so they can communicate to certain squad leaders. And also at this stage, it is important to know that anti-air is not a frontline vehicle, and you shouldn't risk it like that. In the beginning stage, try to have an SL volunteer to be commander, just because most people forget that, and there's timers for all their commander's abilities, so the sooner it happens, the sooner something can happen. The roles that I told about the squads may have to change depending on how late the game is or how close the squad leader is to something. So it's not set in stone and it has to be flexible, but the general expectation in the very beginning is that these are the roles and what's going to happen. So they're in different game modes, yet different priorities, but I want to talk about the defenders in the game mode invasion. So as soon as you start the game, the clock is ticking. If you just joined the squad, have to get inside a vehicle, and you got roughly about 50 seconds to get there ahead of the attackers reliably. You can risk it, or wait till the enemy makes a mistake, but in general, rule of thumb, you should immediately leave. If they cannot get inside the vehicle, tell them to hold spawn, wait till something comes up. The goal will be trying to get to the first or second point as quickly as possible. The first point may be more risky depending on the map and how close it is to the enemy main. So you may have to set up the second one, but in general you have to resist them on each point. Try to whittle their tickets down. As in defenders, you should be trying to destroy enemy helos or logis as soon as they get close to the point. You try to create a perimeter around the point. And in general, I have another piece of advice. Try not to super fob the last or second to last point unless at the very beginning of the game. Just maybe later, because it's a whole lot of time and resources being spent on something that's probably not going to be used if you hold the first or second point. Sappers or combat engineers should always start mining ahead of the point, not behind the point, so as to get resupplies or armor through. And also try to let armor know where the mines are. Attackers have many choices they could make. Once you establish a squad, coordinate a strategy with your SLs. One typical strategy if you're playing invasion is rushing the first point. Have the infantry ride with the armor and rush the enemy HAB on point. As the armor approaches, they put down a smoke screen, and Logis behind them can set up right on point. This is the most risky, and depending on the map, it may or may not be useful, but it's an option. Another option, in general, that most squad leaders do is you slowly send armor without infantry around to contain enemy on a point while remaining a safe distance from anti-tank positions. The Logis would then be moving with the infantry or have infantry in the back and taking off-road routes around the point, and trying to also set up a mortar fob or a tow in the background. Could provide fire support and smoke cover. In general, this more safer option, but there's 100 ways to skin a cat. If you're an attacker, you can come from any which direction you want, but those are two relatively common ways. So I want to talk about FOB good practice as a defender. For most game modes, it doesn't matter as much, but for invasion it matters the most. If there is time, my ideal FOB placement is having the 3 FOBs in a ring around the point, and their HABs are as close as possible to the point to reduce the amount of time it gets to it. It takes for someone to get to point. A general idea or rule of thumb is about 2 to 5 minutes walk, if you can. It's not always possible, but the idea is that you can respond to any direction and resupply in every direction. If there's an attack, you can respond quickly. But, you can't always do that, and most commonly, you'll see the basic form of it, where you put a FOB right on point, the HABs right on point, and then there'd be a backup FOB that has mortars or something. The HAB as close as possible to the point as well. And there's also another way where people put the radio far away from point, but the HAB is right on point. That's also common, but there's always a risk of the radio going down. But if the enemy does get on point, they only take out your HAB, and so at least you protected the radio. Generally, good practice is to place the radio or the HAB in a building or something with cover. If you can't do that, use concealed spots so that the vehicles cannot just roll up and then shoot inside. Try to find like a fenced-in area. HAB and ammo crate is priority whenever you put down a FOB. No one always see like one squad leader build like sandbags and then there's not enough to build a HAB. And placements also are important, like secondaries. No trying to build a wall of sandbags, but you have nothing to shoot with. Avoid putting mortars on the front line FOBs, because if you're being attacked, it's not as effective. But you're also taking away ammo from the entire team that's fighting on the front line, taking away from AT, would be more effective than mortars. Logi runs should at least have one going at all times, and spread around ammo crates so people can resupply quickly. There is a choice you can make if you want to put a vehicle and then place it and put sandbags around it and a repair station right next to it. That way, if it gets shot, it can still do something. But it's also a good idea to set up FOBs on the next point in backup. And also, if it's in a game like Invasion, try to have players spawn in faster to at least have more average time of a soldier on the point. Because, again, if you have people building backup FOBs or super fobbing, it's taking away time and material and people and manpower from the front line, and you have to make up for it somewhere. So FOB good practice for attackers. You get the most flexible choices, but in general, from what I found, most cases you don't really need to build that many emplacements for it as an attacker. All you need is enough build for a HAB and an ammo crate, and what some people like to do, they load up, they're 600 or something for a HAB nano crate. They load 1200 so they can build one in quick succession and then build one in another location so they can attack quickly in two different directions. That's a good choice, but one of the main points I probably should mention is if you're building a very stealthy fob, like you took a back road to get there, try not tell your men not to shoot unless enemies right on top of them. Uh, you're in your most vulnerable state. Try not to give away your position. Uh, and also another important thing to note is once you're about to cap a point, like half capped or something, uh, have a plan or a logic or coordinate with your other squads to get ready to move. Organize transportation as soon as you're about to finish. And also, it's also if you have time for it, you don't have to dig down your radio once you capped a point, so the enemy doesn't steal your tickets and you send in someone afterwards. So good practice for squad leaders uh, varies among each leadership style, what have you. But in general, these are some of my advice for everyone. And if you want to play the game and enjoy it, these are some of the things you could follow. In general, try not to complain on command chat, or at least try to be constructive. If someone's being difficult, they're probably going to be difficult no matter how well you put your point. Accept it. Uh, give out FTLs to those who are active or experienced players. Put them in their own fire teams so they can pass it. So not everyone's asking you for FTL or to mark something on map constantly. It's just less for you to do. Try to delegate. Uh, try to minimize chatter on command channel. Like if you're calling out something that you destroyed, that's important. It's relevant, for a certain armor squad or something. But if you're saying that you just shot someone, it's not relevant. uh, place rally points outside the point. Uh, that way, if the fob goes down, radio gets damaged. You can still react. Um, give hats and lats and sappers freedom to more engage targets, at a reasonable distance from point. My idea is, let your squad members have autonomy, not exactly complete freedom, but they can operate. They'll have to make the micro decisions you can't make. So trying to let them, deal with targets that they find or happen from moment to moment. Try to have about all your guys about in general. It's rough, but like 3 minutes walk away from point as a general rule, and try to keep them around you if you are attacking as well. So good practice for squad members. It varies, and there's a lot of pieces of advice, but I'm going to touch on some of the more important ones. Try to save ammo when you resupply for anti-tank. Uh, save tickets. Forget about your KD ratio. This isn't Call of Duty. Um, if you're not confident with the class or like a kit, like hat, try to practice on something less, like lat. Let experienced players take it, and try not to take marksman class if if there's no other choice. Clear comms or use proximity. Minimize chatter. Your SL is probably not going to hear you. When you're calling out a target, you have to use a direction relative to some point and use a range, especially if like everyone's far apart. If everyone's close together and you give out a bearing, saying like contact front, okay. If everyone's together, everyone knows where contact front is. But try to add in a range. But if everyone's far apart from each other, uh, saying bearing west of airport, 200 meters, that's a relatively okay call out. Um, In most cases, sometimes if you come across a vehicle like a Logi or a Technical, you can just shoot out the tires. If you are able to capture a vehicle and not let them use it, that takes not only takes one away from the enemy, uh, you also uh, prevent them from using it ever again, uh, which helps you later in the game. Try to worry about survivability as well. Practice what it means to, if you engage an enemy from one direction, try to approach from another. Uh, you can also pick up infantry that are near you, even if you're not a medic. Uh, Especially if everyone's spawn is really far away, try to pick up other people. And mark or call out whenever you can. I should have a disclaimer saying that this is just my opinion, and different people have different experiences. I can understand if you have a different conclusion, and in general, my own opinion changes a lot. So keep that in mind. But this is generally, from this point in time, my own opinion. As for final notes, I remember when I was in elementary school, I played soccer. We weren't good at anything, but from my experience and what I remember, there was no offense, there was no defense. It was just chaos. There was just a bunch of kids on both sides following a ball around the field until someone made it to one side of the field. And that's what it was. And if you play squad for long enough, you start to see the same thing, where people only set up around the relevant points, and it just becomes kicking back and forth. And there's no plan, no system. If everyone gets on the same page and can coordinate, it doesn't have to be just kicking around the map. You can actually secure and win if everyone works together. And I think you also deserve a treat of something I found when I was playing.
Why is there C4? I still don't understand why there's C4 in the middle of nowhere.
It's a Russian screaming for a medic. I put it right near him.
So you put a C4 on him? Who does that?
Me? There's a tiger too.
Who puts C4? Who wastes C4 on a Russian screaming for help?
Oh my god, that's fucking funny. Man, just booty trap to fucking... I'm pretty sure that's against the Geneva Convention.